we are providing. I mean, I always think of a bird feeder as being a permanently fruiting tree. That's essentially what you've done. You can plant a rowan tree. That's one species. You can plant some Gouda rose or whatever else you want in your garden, but it will only produce fruit for a short part of the yearly season, and it's only one species. Whereas if you have a bird feeder, it's permanently fruiting, and you can switch the species by changing what you put in it. And furthermore, it's not rooted to the ground. So if you want to move it somewhere else for convenience, you can do so. I think that we have to accept that studies done in the United States show that our wild birds don't become dependent on our food. So there were some studies done there with chickadees, which are essentially tit species, and they stopped feeding and they monitored what happened to the birds. And rather like our urban foxes, we see that they are only taking about 50% of what we call our anthropogenic, human-provided food. So you're not creating a dependence by feeding the birds, but you are bringing them all into one spot where disease transmission is therefore of concern. You might also be bringing them into a spot where their accessibility is noticed by predators, things like sparrowhawks and so on and so forth. But again, I would argue that if you have a healthy enough population of small birds, then you ought to welcome the sparrowhawk there as well. That's part of a functional ecology. I know some people are distressed by the fact that they swoop in and murder their finches and tits on their patio, but that shows that you've got a healthy garden, basically. And then you go, yes, there is the mental health benefit. I enjoy seeing those birds in my space. I like being able to contribute towards a healthier natural environment. I like being part of a healthier community. I don't just feed the birds, I feed the mammals outside. I've got a buzzard feeding platform where I put roadkill up off the ground so that the poodles don't get it. And I just put a grey squirrel up there this morning, actually, and the buzzards will come in and take that. In the past, before I moved here, we had goshawk coming in, which was something to brag about. So I think, again, it's about making those contributions, but making sure that you do it in a responsible way. So when it comes to feeding the foxes, for instance, I don't feed them, anywhere near the house. They're fed out in the woods, because I don't want them to develop an association between my food and me. Because they'll go around to my neighbours, who's probably not quite so keen on foxes, looking for food there, and that's where conflict can occur. So you have to find a careful balance between, getting the enjoyment from the wildlife that you crave and enjoy, but at the same time making sure that you keep it at arm's length and you don't do it any harm.